one I was
Somebody asked lateral medullary syndrome.
Yes, ma'am.
What question, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. 1 second, ma'am. Someone had asked
Swallowing difficulty happens in lateral medullary syndrome. Huh?
can we get dysarthria in lateral medullary syndrome? If yes, what type?
Lateral medullary syndrome is posterior inferior cerebellar artery, no?
Yes, ma'am.
So you will get a cerebellar type of dysarthria.
Yes,
You can get a dysarthria, very much uncommon, but you can get.
yes,
If you get it is a cerebellar type of dysarthria commonly. Second, you can get a palatal weakness. So sometimes you can get a nasal tang also.
yes, ma'am.
So lateral medullary syndrome, two types of speech can happen, but very much less common. Because it is a neocerebellum that involves the dysarthria, whereas in the lateral medullary syndrome, there is not much involvement of the neocerebellum. But it can happen. Mild degree of cerebellar type of dysarthria or palatal type of speech can happen.
Yes.
Any other question, ma'am?
They asked if we can repeat 4 Ds of vesicular involvement. Diplopia.
Yes, ma'am.
4 Ds of vesicular third nerve involvement.
Vesicular third nerve involvement. Vesicular third nerve is after the third nerve has come out from the nucleus. At the nuclear level, that Warwick's pattern is there. So I said all those points. Bilateral ptosis, pure pupil, without eye movement or individual eye movement, pseudoparanoid syndrome. If ptosis is there, it is bilateral. Vesicular means it is a 4D.
4D, yes.
Diplopia, divergent skinned, drooping of eyelid and dilated pupil. All things go together because in the vesicular level, everything is together. The 4 Ds are coming at the vesicular level.
Yes, ma'am.
Weber syndrome, intraaxial vesicular. So vesicular can be intraaxial or extraaxial. Intraaxial vesicular is the Weber syndrome and all. Vascular, demyelinating, syringobulbous, tumors of the brainstem, they are intraaxial vesicular. Whereas cysternally supraclinoid aneurysm of the internal carotid artery or meningitis, that is in the cysternal space, then the brainstem features will not be there. Like that.
Yes. We'll go to the examination. Coming to the clinical examination.
Tell me, ma'am.
This was an elderly right-handed gentleman with no background comorbidities. He presented with he was an elderly male, conscious, cooperative, lying supine on the bed, well oriented to time, place, and person. BP was 140 by 80 millimeter of mercury in both right and left arm supine posture, with pulse being normal, 78 beats per minute, regular, normal in volume, character, and the vessel wall was not thickened. Peripheral pulses were well felt. Respiratory rate was 18 cycles per minute, abdominothoracic in nature. Due to examination, there was no pallor-icterus cyanosis clubbing, lymphadenopathy or edema. There are no neurocutaneous markers. There is no facial asymmetry or any wasting of temporalis muscle. Coming to the nervous system examination, higher mental functions. Patient is conscious.
No wasting. What is the importance, ma'am?
Ma'am?
You said specifically no wasting.
Myotonic dystrophy can also have such presentations, ma'am.
More than that, we are already considering motor neuron disease.
Yes,
we are considering myopathies. They all will produce wasting.
Wasting, yes.
So absence of wasting is a point in favor of neuromuscular junction. Neuromuscular junction disease wasting happens only in some rare types of congenital myasthenias, not in acquired myasthenia. Acquired myasthenia, if it is untreated for several years and severe disuse atrophy like that, it can happen. But absence of wasting is a point in favor of neuromuscular junction, and it is not common with motor neuron disease or myopathy.
Okay, ma'am. Coming to higher mental functions, patient was conscious, alert, cooperative, well oriented to time, place, and person. Memory, immediate, recent, and remote memory was intact. Language was normal, was preserved. Speech, dysarthria, flaccid dysarthria, which was episodic, which involved labial, linguals, and gutturals. There was no.
Were also involved, huh?
Yes, ma'am. All were involved, ma'am.
It is relatively less common.
Okay.
Now, linguals are involved in what kind of muscle disease? Linguals can be involved in bulbar type of MND.
Yes, ma'am.
On myopathies do not involve,
Yes,
but rarely neuromuscular junction disease can involve the linguals. That is anti-musk. You heard of anti-musk antibody?
yes, ma'am.
Not acetylcholine receptor,
Yes, ma'am.
classical acetylcholine receptor antibody.
Anti-musk.
Anti-musk antibody can produce linguals, but otherwise it is less common. Okay.
There is no nasal twang or any regurgitation that was noted.
It was not there.
It was not there, ma'am.
Okay. Maybe when you examined, he was in the on phase.
On face, yes.
Maybe. Yes.
Probably, ma'am.
Because already he had swallowing difficulties, he was choking. So that is expected. But that fluctuating phase, you might have seen him.
Yes,
Okay.
Lobar functions were normal, ma'am.
Hmm.
Coming to cranial nerve examination, mainly the second cranial nerve, counting finger was reduced at 4 meters. Counting finger was put at 4 meters. Superior visual field was reduced. Ptosis was noted, ma'am. That image is there. I'll just show that image after this.
Pupil is covered or not covered?
Ma'am?
Pupil is covered or not covered?
Pupil is not covered, ma'am. Pupil was not covered.
It's a partial ptosis.
Partial ptosis, ma'am. Pupils are round, reactive, and regular, 4 millimeter in size. Color vision was normal. A senile immature cataract was also noted. Fundal glow was present on fundus examination. Bilaterally, ma'am. Coming to third, fourth, and sixth cranial examination, there was pupillary reflexes that were present and equal, but there was complete external ophthalmoplegia that was present bilaterally. But however, patient said he had this horizontal diplopia in primary gaze with no worsening on asking the patient to look to either all the 8 cardinal directions of gaze, ma'am. Coming to the fifth nerve examination, the fifth nerve sensory motor and was intact. Jaw jerk was absent.
He has horizontal diplopia.
He has horizontal diplopia, ma'am.
What does that indicate? You said all eye muscle movements are paralyzed. So it's a frozen eye with relatively better preserved horizontal muscles, I think. Because when all other muscles are completely paralyzed, there will be no diplopia. Because there will be no lack of parallelism of the visual axis. If all, that is why it doesn't happen in myopathy. In myopathy, there is uniform involvement of all muscles. So the relatively sparing of the horizontal muscle is what is causing the horizontal diplopia in this case. Because that is again favoring myasthenia. As I told you, it is levator and the superior recti, the vertical muscles.
Vertical muscles, yes.
So vertical muscles are probably severely involved and symmetrically involved.
Yes, ma'am.
So they are not producing a diplopia. Horizontal muscles are relatively better preserved and they are asymmetrically involved. Therefore, they are producing a horizontal diplopia.
Yes, ma'am.
Because the frozen eyes, in the frozen eye, only the preserved muscles with an asymmetry between both eyeballs can produce a lack of parallelism of the visual axis.
Yes, ma'am.
So that is the only one which is horizontal muscle is making the disease asymmetrical in the intraocular muscles, extraocular muscles.
Yes, ma'am.
So you have to say why horizontal diplopia? Because vertical muscles are completely frozen.
Yes.
And horizontal muscles are partially involved. So there is horizontal diplopia.
Yes. Coming to the seventh nerve, there was weakness of the orbicularis, oris, oculi, and buccinators that was noted. Eighth nerve was normal. Coming to the ninth and 10th cranial nerve, palatal movements were preserved, but the gag reflex was absent bilaterally. Palatal movements were equal and present both the sides.
Absent gag.
Bilaterally, ma'am.
Does he feel the sensation?
He feels the sensation, ma'am, but there was no gag that was present, ma'am.
Does he have pawn chewing or anything like that?
He didn't give any history like that, ma'am. Oral cavity also was normal.
Does he have any tendency to swallow, vomit or anything when you touch the palate? It is there?
Yes, ma'am, it is there, ma'am.
The palate is not at all moving.
Ma'am?
Is the palate moving or not moving?
Palate is moving, ma'am. Palate is moving.
Palate is moving.
Palate is moving, ma'am. Only gag
Symmetrically?
was symmetrically movement, ma'am. Palate's movements are present and they are symmetrical.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. This part I was not able to explain this one.
You see, sometimes it happens in old people, if they had used pan or the palate becomes less sensitive like the conjunctiva.
Okay.
If they have smoked, you said he was not a smoker, but if they had used substances like pan, then the palate becomes less sensitive.
Okay. 11th and 12th cranial nerves were normal. 12th nerve, there is no deviation or deviation of the tongue. There is no atrophy or fasciculations that are noted.
In the linguals are involved, tongue can become atrophic in the antemusk, and it produces something called trident tongue.
Trident tongue, okay.
Trident tongue. So there is a peculiar pattern of grooving that you should specifically look for to know whether it is antemusk.
Okay. Special tests that you had done because our differential was at the level of either muscle disorder or neuromuscular junction. This was the initial, this was on the resting phase, ma'am. This was initially, and this was then after the ice pack test, ma'am. This was the
very good, very good response.
Yes, ma'am. And then
plus minus sign you're opening and that eye is closing.
Enhancement of ptosis we demonstrated.
Yes, when you open that eye, this eye is closing.
Will close, yes, ma'am.
Yes. Reverse plus minus.
Yes, ma'am. There was no forced abduction was normal. There was no other muscular weakness of any other part of the body. No any proximal muscle involvement in either the upper limb or lower limb.
Tick sign was there, huh?
Ma'am?
Tick sign was there? No.
Tick sign, ma'am.
Kogan's eyelid tick sign.
Kogan sign was there, ma'am. It was there, ma'am.
There.
I didn't take a video of that.
Okay.
Yes.
I think some degree of horizontal movement is there, no? Very mild movement or what? I'm unable to see clearly, but I think there is some horizontal movement. It is moving.
Okay.
Slightly moving.
Okay.
The vertical plane, it is not at all moving.
Not at all moving, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So we are right, because the horizontal movements are relatively less involved, yes, which is again favoring a neuromuscular junction.
Yes, ma'am.
Neostigmine test you did, huh?
No, ma'am, I didn't do neostigmine test. It was given, ma'am, but I didn't take this one. There was response to neostigmine, ma'am.
There was no response?
There was a response, ma'am.
There was a response.
There was.
What are the things you should rule out in a senior person like this before you do the neostigmine test?
Cardiac condition we have to see first before giving, ma'am.
Very good. That's what I told you about myasthenia and myopathy. All these cholinergic drugs can produce cardiac arrhythmias. So you have to rule out a heart disease. Second, bronchospasm.
Bronchospasm, yes, ma'am.
They can aggravate bronchospasm. Yes. And if they have peptic ulcer, it can bleed. Okay. So active peptic ulcer, bronchospasm and heart disease should be ruled out before you do this.
Yes, ma'am.
Then tell me, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
What else? RNS was done, no? Repetitive stimulation. Other things are all right, no?
Yeah, other things are all right. Pupil was normal, ma'am. There is no obvious sensory deficit that was noted like in examination. Motor system examination, there is no obvious change in the tone, power, or reflexes are all normal, ma'am. There are no involuntary movements. Coordination was normal. Sensory system was intact, ma'am. Cortical sensation was also intact. Cerebellar, no signs of any cerebellar involvement. No meningeal signs. Gait was normal. Skull, spine, and carotids were normal, ma'am. Other system examination was also normal.
So after examination, you have no differential diagnosis, only one diagnosis.
Yes, ma'am.
You have got an asymmetrical ptosis, ophthalmoplegia, vertical more involved than horizontal, then pharyngeal face dysphagia with no afferent pathway involvement,
Yes, ma'am.
and good response to ISPAC test and other tests. So there is only one diagnosis, that is neuromuscular junction disease. So at this stage, you should also investigate for paraneoplasty, very rapidly progressing.
Okay.
Short duration, rapid progression.
Yes,
so you'll have to, apart from thymoma, you have to look for other neoplasms also. Then another thing in this situation you have to see is the categorization. You have got myasthenia which may be purely ocular,
yes, ma'am.
Ocular with mild generalized,
yes,
ocular with respiratory, and acute respiratory. That is called Osserman's classification.
Okay, ma'am.
Osserman classification. So he is having ocular with mild generalized.
Yes,
so it will come under no respiratory involvement. So it is Osserman class 2. Because if it is purely ocular and it is not progressing for more than 1 year and remains confined to ocular, it is said that you can just give a clip glass and mechanical support, and you can avoid drugs when patients are likely to get side effects.
Okay.
But ocular with generalized, even if the generalization is mild,
yes,
both immunomodulation and medication has to be used. So purely ocular, no thymoma, acetylcholine receptor antibody positive, and remains ocular only for more than 1 year, the treatment need not be immunosuppression. Symptomatic treatment can be given if the ptosis is complete, like that. So, but this is not so. Your antibody is positive, and he is having class 2. So he needs both symptomatic and immunosuppressive medication. You can start, if it becomes bulbar, becomes severe, or he develops respiratory, you will have to put him on plasmapheresis or intravenous immunoglobulin, depending on the availability, and then stabilize and go into immunosuppression with high dose steroids to start with. Simultaneously, second line immunosuppression either with azathioprine or mycophenolate, because these drugs take about 2 to 3 months to act.
Yes, ma'am.
So steroids can be slowly tapered to the lowest level required and maintained with second line immunosuppression, azathioprine or mycophenolate. I feel that azathioprine is good enough. And the symptomatic, because it is cheap, mycophenolate is very costly. And the symptomatic drugs, pyridostigmine, can be slowly reduced if the symptoms become stabilized, and only the immunomodulatory drugs will have to be continued for a longer period of time. In a senior person like this, with normal thymus, no thymic tumor, indication for thymectomy is not clear. The acetylcholine receptor antibody positive, thymic hyperplasia, duration of disease less than 1 year, that is the ideal situation where you get the best results with thymectomy. Thymoma, you have to do thymectomy, but prognosis is not good. So best prognosis is duration of disease 1 year, less than 1 year, female gender, antibody positive, thymic hyperplasia. Thymic lipomas almost give cure. Thymic lipoma, you remove, patient may not need anything.
Okay.
Any other drug afterwards. Thymic lipoma is the curable myasthenia. Thymic hyperplasia is very good if the duration is less than 1 year and the female gender. Thymoma is always bad. So old people with no thymic abnormality, there is a dispute regarding thymectomy. Some people do, some people don't do. If it becomes refractory to treatment, all modalities will be tried. At that time, people might do. But there is no definite indication for thymectomy in a 73-year-old person. You do a mediastinal opening surgery with not much indication. So, any doubts, ma'am?
Ma'am,
So this is a
steroids-
straightforward case.
Yes,
It's
ma'am.
not really a nerve. So we discuss the symptom of the patient. That way you only is good. Anything we can discuss in the neuraxis slowly. When it suits both of you people and me, we can fix appointments. Anything I am at your service only.
Ma'am,
So any doubts you can ask me, ma'am.
ma'am, what is the
Any
dose of
doubt?
steroids we should start, ma'am? Start with, ma'am.
Now, dose of steroids, there are two methods. One method is giving high dose steroids to start with. The problem is, you see, steroids will suppress both B cells and T cells. So, but both are abnormal. B cells are suppressed earlier than the T cells. So, and among the B cells, it is a suppressor, T cells are suppressed earlier than the B cells. And among the T cells, it is a suppressor T cell which is suppressed early.
Okay.
So what will happen is, there is a transient increase in the function of the B cells.
Okay.
So they produce an antibody surge. So if you give a high dose steroid, you should keep the ventilator ready.
Okay.
Because there is an antibody surge. Patient can land in the ventilator. But it is said that the period of response to treatment is shortened, but patient may go into ventilator.
Okay.
But if you start with a very small dose we start with a physiological dose of 7.5 milligram and slowly titrate to maximum tolerated dose and maximum beneficial dose and maintain it like that for full remission for 2 to 3 months and then start tapering. That is very safe.
Yes. Okay, ma'am.
But the period needed to induce remission is longer. I do not go into high dose because high dose can land the patient on ventilator. Sometimes it is more tragic than what we expect. To reduce the period of induction of remission, we may kill the patient. So some people do that. I always give low dose. Both methods are practiced. Low dose, slowly titrate, reach the optimum dose needed to produce full remission, maintain at remission for 2 to 3 months, then titrate down and maintain at the minimum dose needed to sustain remission. Some people need about 5 to 7.5 milligram only.
Okay.
Any other doubt, ma'am? You can post the doubts also if they come later also.
Okay, ma'am.
Any doubt you can ask. If I know, I will tell the answer.